Have you ever heard the expression, good fences make good neighbors? Well, in the beautiful American West, in Idaho,
those fences just became stronger, or blurrier. It depends who you ask. Because trespassing on private property can now result in thousands of dollars of fines and a felony charge.
We're okay about sending a policy message that private property matters. Those things come with inherent rights that are in our Constitution.
In Idaho, over 60% of the land is public, land that can be accessed by anybody, and all that land is intermingled with the private land.
It's almost like a checkerboard.
And trespassing, even if by accident, could be deadly because the state also expanded its stand your ground laws.
Assume that everybody carries in Idaho, right? Because it's legal for everybody to carry all the time. So you should just assume that everybody carries and act accordingly.
So you now have big landowners at odds with other conservative groups like sheriffs and hunting and fishing associations.
We are a very conservative state, but yet a divided state.
People think that it's taking away their access to the public ground. I think this bill has been somewhat of a lightning rod.
Before we get into the situation in Idaho, let's just take a second to discuss what trespassing even is. In Scotland, Finland, Sweden, and other countries, people out in nature have the right to respectfully cross private property. But in the US, ever since a 1922 Supreme Court decision, property owners have the right to exclude people from their property if they post a no trespassing sign. And that's basically still how it works today.
If you want to enforce trespassing on the private land, you need to post it.
As in, you can't call any of the sheriffs in Idaho to arrest a trespasser on your property if you haven't put your no trespassing signs up. And for the most part, outdoors folks and landowners, they get along.
Most all ranchers are very accommodating to sportsmen, to recreationalists, as long as they know. An individual can float down the river on a boat and hunt ducks. That's government-owned ground. Once you get onto those banks, then it becomes private property. We do ask that they do ask us every single time, just because we make sure that they're not going to be hunting around where our livestock is at.
And you see a lot of no trespassing signs, and responsible hunters and anglers will see that sign and stay away. They don't want to break the law.
But then the winds changed when draft legislation for a new trespassing law appeared. It was co-sponsored by rancher and Senator Judy Boyle, written by a lobbyist for 34 private property groups, including the Idaho Farm Bureau, who wouldn't give an interview for this piece.
The people that supported this bill have all the power in the state of Idaho, and they produce a lot of the tax base, which is fine.
Though right away, the local press was investigating any connection to two Texas brothers, oil and gas billionaires called the Wilkes brothers, who had bought up over 100,000 acres of land from a private timber company, a timber company that had kind of let everyone use the land as if it was public land.
And this is a lot of people's bear hunting, elk hunting, and cougar hunting grounds.
The Wilkes brothers made their land totally private, which is totally legal. Though, even as absentee landowners, they haven't been the friendliest neighbors. In summer 2017, they hired a private security guard to patrol around their land, including on this public road.
So you're telling me that I'm on private property, but then you're telling me you don't know if I am. So any random individual is going to come up here, you're going to tell them to leave from a state Forest Service road. Taking pictures of my vehicle.
The company I work for wants us to get it.
The legislators and their staff, they came to us already with the bill looking for support.
Yeah, it's kind of alarming to see two Texas billionaires walk into Idaho, buy a whole chunk of it, and then start lobbying for bills that directly benefit them, large landowners, and sort of attack public lands recreationists.
Here's one of the ads that the Idaho Property Rights Coalition ran for keeping recreationalists out of your backyard.
Property rights are some of our most important rights.
I mean, they said that all sportsmen groups had been infiltrated by radical environmentalists. And in Idaho, that is an insult to a lot of people. So why are we concerned with trespassing on private property? Well, a lot of public land hunting happens where public land abuts private land.
Let's take a look at the maps again. In Idaho, over 60% of the state is public. Those are the color-shaded areas. But in many regions, it's all checkerboarded with private land. Though when you're standing out there, a lot of the landscape looks the same.
What this law does is it changes the way that landowners are supposed to post their property.
In the previous law, private property had to be posted every 660 feet.
And we're talking about large pieces of property, which there are a lot of those in the backcountry.
Posting that every 660 feet can get kind of cumbersome.
So now they've eliminated that.
They relax those rules to normal points of entry like a gate.
The law now says you don't have to post if it can reasonably be associated with a home or a business, which sportsmen say could confuse people because both ranching and logging, which are businesses, take place on public land. And if you are posting your private land, you now only need to post conspicuously so that a reasonable person knows or should have known it's private property.
If everybody acted reasonably, we'd be out of business. What is reasonable to one person is not reasonable to another. That's why not only every law enforcement agency in the state of Idaho opposed the bill, but every sportsman group in the state of Idaho opposed the bill.
Combined with the passage of the Stand Your Ground bill that just happened, you may have entered on somebody's property. They can assume that you are there for nefarious intent, and that can get ugly.
The law gives the person the right to use deadly force, and it's presumed that you have that right based upon the person being on your property. You don't have to prove that you are in danger. It's just the mere fact that they're there. So it does create some concerns.
I mean, how many Idahoans are just sitting around on their front porch waiting for the random hunter to come onto their property because they are going to take that opportunity because they would like to kill someone? We haven't had people randomly just shooting each other in Idaho.
There are many in Idaho who see no connection between the trespassing bill and the Stand Your Ground bill. And even though everyone agrees that the previous fine, $50 for trespassing, was too low, sportsmen are now concerned that, given how confusing the law is, that the penalties are now too high.
Probably one of the more controversial parts of the bill was they made it a felony for, you'd almost call them habitual offenders, not necessarily for first-time offenders.
The US is a litigious place, which means that recreationalists could be sued for mistakenly trespassing by accident, like if they didn't notice the no trespassing signs. And you might not even recover your legal fees if you win, based on the way the law is written. Needless to say, the bill created a lot of controversy when it passed. The governor, Butch Otter, refused to add his signature to either bill, saying that if teenagers in rural Idaho snuck into a 300-acre cornfield in the middle of the night, if a farmer shoots and kills one of those teenagers, the farmer would be presumed to have acted reasonably.
You kind of have to really do your research before you go on like a simple hike now. If am I going to cross someone's boundary lines? Am I going to cross multiple houses? Or having to put that much effort into like all the research and stuff, it just takes away from it, you know?
In May, the trespassing debate was taken up by Boise State's New Leadership Conference, where the students were asked to role-play as lobbyists and reporters and politicians.
It may actually limit how many people come just for tourism because they're afraid they don't understand the laws, they're afraid they could be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they'll choose to go elsewhere, so it'll actually...
In their mock committee hearing, the girls voted to table the bill to 2019 to allow for more input from outdoors groups, and out of concern for how it intersected with Stand Your Ground, a law they felt may also disproportionately affect people of color. But that's just a mock debate. In real life, both bills went into effect July 1st, 2018.
If we see that all of a sudden Idahoans rise up and act irrationally in a way that we've never seen across our state, well, the legislature can fix this, right? Local law enforcement has discretion to not write the tickets if they don't want to write a ticket.
I think there's much ado about nothing, honestly. There's just some good communication, a good communication on our part, good communication on a sportsman or a recreationalist that might be out and about. A lot of these issues can just be handled at the backseat of a pickup truck or, in somebody's kitchen. If it knock on a door, hey, I'm in the area, do you mind if I happen to cross through your place?
This is, in fact, one of the intentions of the bill, to cultivate a new respect for private property rights and a renewal of the neighborly ways which have been a hallmark of our state. Though that expression, good fences make good neighbors, it comes from a poem by Robert Frost called Mending Fence. And the poem is actually kind of about how fences, they only divide us.
We want more of a balance between the citizens regardless of your status in life. We certainly understand property owners, and they own large tracts of land, but people also have a right to be out there when they're recreating, and what we don't want is we don't want conflict out there.